I thought I had everything figured out at 32. A great job as a software engineer in Seattle, a beautiful fiancée named Amanda, and our wedding just weeks away. My brother Michael and I were always competitive growing up, but I never imagined he would betray me in the worst possible way. Then I discovered the truth, and my entire world collapsed around me. Before I start this story, let me know where you are watching from. Hit that like button and subscribe to hear how I rebuilt my life after the ultimate betrayal. Life was really good for me. At 32, I had established myself as a senior software engineer at Tech Fusion, one of the most prestigious tech companies in Seattle. The pay was excellent, my colleagues respected me, and I had finally achieved the stability I had worked so hard for since graduating from Washington State University. But the best part of my life was Amanda. We met 3 years ago at my college friend Paul's birthday party. I noticed her immediately across the crowded living room. She was laughing at something, her head thrown back, dark hair cascading down her shoulders. When our eyes met, something just clicked. I worked up the courage to talk to her, and we ended up chatting until 3 in the morning about everything from our favorite sci-fi movies to our childhood dreams. Amanda was smart, funny, and ambitious. She worked as a marketing director for a local cosmetics company, and her creativity always impressed me. We started dating, and everything felt right from the beginning. No awkward phase, no major disagreements, just two people who fit perfectly together. After a year and a half of dating, I knew she was the one. I planned a weekend getaway to a cabin near Mount Rainier. The morning after we arrived, I suggested a hike to a nearby lookout point. When we reached the summit with the majestic mountain behind us and the valley spreading out below, I got down on one knee and asked her to marry me. Her joyful yes made me the happiest man alive. We set the date for June 15th, giving ourselves plenty of time to plan the perfect wedding. Amanda threw herself into the preparations with enthusiasm. We found a beautiful venue overlooking Puget Sound, finalized a guest list of 150 people, and spent weekends selecting everything from flowers to music. My family was thrilled about our engagement. My parents, Thomas and Linda, had been married for 40 years and were excited to see me follow in their footsteps. Mom immediately volunteered to plan the bridal shower, while Dad offered to help with some of the wedding expenses, even though Amanda and I were financially comfortable. My brother Michael, 3 years older than me, seemed happy for us too. We had always had a complicated relationship growing up. Being the older brother, Michael often felt entitled to more attention, more privileges, and more praise. There was always an undercurrent of competition between us, but as adults, I thought we had moved past that. He had a successful career as a financial advisor and seemed settled in his life, though he had remained single after a tough breakup 5 years ago. When we announced our engagement, Michael hugged me tightly and told me he was proud of me. He welcomed Amanda into the family with seemingly genuine warmth. She quickly became part of our family traditions, joining us for Sunday dinners at my parents' house and participating in our holiday celebrations. My mom taught her our secret family recipes, and my dad treated her like the daughter he never had. Amanda fit in perfectly, or so I thought. My parents adored her, and even Michael seemed to enjoy her company. Looking back, I should have noticed how their conversations sometimes went quiet when I entered the room, or how they occasionally exchanged glances when they thought nobody was watching. But I was too caught up in my happiness and the life I was building to see the warning signs. By the beginning of this year, everything was falling into place. Amanda and I had put a deposit down on a house in the suburbs, planning to move in after our honeymoon. We talked about starting a family within the next couple of years and dreamed about the places we would travel together. I had never felt more secure or more certain about my future. I remember thinking that I had truly made it. Great career, beautiful and loving fiancé, supportive family, financial security, and plans for an even brighter future. Nothing could possibly go wrong. The first hint that something was off came about 3 months before our wedding. Amanda started acting differently. Not dramatically at first, just small changes that I initially brushed off as stress from wedding planning combined with pressure at her job. She became more protective of her phone, always keeping it face down and taking calls in another room. When I asked who was calling, she would say just work or wedding stuff and quickly change the subject. I trusted her completely, so I never pushed the issue. Around the same time, Michael suddenly became very involved in our wedding planning, He offered to help Amanda meet with vendors when I was busy with work, suggested restaurants for the rehearsal dinner, and even volunteered to handle the music playlist for the reception. I was grateful for his help, especially since I was in the middle of a major project at work with impossible deadlines. Then I started noticing strange interactions between Amanda and Michael at family gatherings. A lingering glance here, an inside joke there. Once I walked into my parents' kitchen to find them standing unusually close, talking in hushed tones. They jumped apart when they saw me, and Amanda busied herself helping my mom with the salad. Amanda began making excuses to skip our traditional Sunday family dinners. "I have a headache," she would say, "or I really need to catch up on some work." I was disappointed but understood. Wedding planning on top of a full-time job was exhausting. My own work stress was mounting. My team was launching a new software platform, and the pressure was intense. I was working 12-hour days and sometimes weekends. Amanda was supportive, bringing me dinner at the office when I worked late and listening patiently to my work frustrations. I thought we were solid despite the stress. One night I came home earlier than expected to find Amanda on the phone in our bedroom, speaking in a whisper. "We cannot keep doing this," she said. "He suspects something." When she saw me, she quickly ended the call and claimed it was her sister Kelly discussing a surprise bachelor party. I believed her, because I wanted to believe her. Michael started coming to our apartment more frequently, always with some excuse about wedding details. He would stay late long after whatever wedding topic had been discussed. Sometimes I would come home from work to find him already there, helping Amanda with some task or another. I was grateful for their apparent friendship, never suspecting there might be more to it. A couple of friends tried to hint that something might be wrong. My buddy Ryan asked if everything was okay between Amanda and me. When I assured him we were fine, just busy, he gave me a strange look but dropped the subject. My coworker Tasha commented that she had seen Amanda and Michael having an intense conversation at a coffee shop near my office. "They seemed really involved in their discussion," she said casually. I explained that they were probably discussing wedding plans and thought nothing more of it. Despite these subtle warning signs, I maintained complete trust in both Amanda and Michael. They were the two people closest to me besides my parents. The thought that they might betray me never seriously crossed my mind. Then Amanda missed her period. When she told me, she blamed it on stress and said it had happened before. I was concerned about her health and suggested she see a doctor, but she insisted it was nothing to worry about. Looking back, I realized she was trying to buy time to figure out what to do. I noticed Michael acted strange when I mentioned that Amanda was not feeling well. He became overly concerned, asking detailed questions about her symptoms. At the time, I appreciated his concern for her well-being. Wanting to reconnect with Amanda amid all the wedding stress and work pressure, I planned a surprise weekend getaway to the same cabin where I had proposed. When I told her about it, she seemed reluctant, claiming she had too much to do before the wedding. Her lack of enthusiasm hurt me, but I chalked it up to her being overwhelmed. I had no idea that the foundation of my perfect life was about to crumble beneath my feet. Everything fell apart exactly 7 weeks before our wedding date. I decided to leave work early to pack for our weekend getaway, hoping to surprise Amanda. When I got home, the apartment was quiet, but I heard muffled sounds coming from our bathroom. I found Amanda sitting on the edge of the bathtub, crying silently, a pregnancy test in her hand. My first reaction was joy. Despite the timing not being exactly what we had planned, the thought of starting a family with Amanda filled me with happiness. "Are we having a baby?" I asked, my voice full of excitement. Amanda looked up at me, her face a mask of guilt, and fear, not the happiness I expected. "Johnny, I am so sorry," she sobbed. Confusion replaced my initial joy. "What are you sorry for? This is wonderful news." She just cried harder, unable to meet my eyes. A knot of dread formed in my stomach as my mind began connecting dots I had previously ignored. "Amanda, what is going on?" I asked, my voice hardening. "I am pregnant," she confirmed, between sobs, and I prompted, already suspecting there was more to the story. "And you were in San Francisco for that conference when it happened," she finally admitted. The conference. I had been gone for a week presenting our new software platform. As the realization dawned on me, I felt physically ill. I had to sit down on the closed toilet lid as the room seemed to spin around me. Who I managed to ask, though, deep down I already knew the answer. Amanda refused to say, but her silence told me everything. I grabbed her phone from the counter and demanded she unlock it. After a moment of hesitation, she did. I went straight to her text messages and found an entire thread with Michael going back months. The messages confirmed my worst fears. They had been having an affair for nearly 6 months right under my nose. There were intimate messages, plans to meet when I was working late, and recently panicked exchanges about the pregnancy. "How could you do this to me?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. With my brother, Amanda finally looked at me, tears streaming down her face. "It just happened, Johnny. We never meant to hurt you. We tried to stop it so many times, but what you just could not control yourselves was planning our wedding, so boring that you needed to sleep with my brother for entertainment." My shock was turning to anger. "It was not like that," she insisted. "Michael and we connected on a level I did not expect. The more time we spent together planning the wedding, the closer we became. I could not believe what I was hearing. The woman I loved, the woman I was planning to spend my life with, had betrayed me with my own brother. And now she was carrying his child, a child that might have been mine in a different reality. I left Amanda crying in the bathroom and called Michael. The call went straight to voicemail. I grabbed my keys and drove to his apartment, adrenaline and rage fueling me. When Michael opened his door, he already knew. Amanda had texted him. I could see it in his eyes, the guilt and fear. Behind him, I noticed a half-packed suitcase on his bed. Running away, I asked, pushing past him into the apartment. "Johnny, you need to calm down so we can talk about this like adults," he said, backing away from me. Something snapped inside me. All the trust, all the brotherly love I had felt for him my entire life transformed into blinding rage. I lunged at him, grabbing him by his shirt collar and slamming him against the wall. I had never been a violent person, but in that moment, I wanted to hurt him as badly as he had hurt me. "You slept with my fiancée, you got her pregnant. What kind of brother does that?" I shouted, my face inches from his. Michael did not fight back. He just stood there, taking my verbal assault occasionally, trying to offer pathetic excuses. "It just happened, Johnny," he echoed Amanda's words. "We never meant for any of this. The pregnancy was an accident." An accident? Was falling into bed with her an accident too? "Did you accidentally keep doing it for months behind my back?" I was almost incoherent with rage and pain. Eventually, I let him go, suddenly exhausted. The fight drained out of me as quickly as it had come, leaving only a hollow feeling in my chest. "You were always jealous of me," I said quietly. "Ever since we were kids. But I never thought you would stoop this low." Michael had the decency to look ashamed. "This is not about jealousy, Johnny. What Amanda and I have is real. We were going to tell you after the pregnancy was confirmed." "How considerate of you," I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "Were you going to wait until after the honeymoon, or were you planning to object at the ceremony for maximum dramatic effect?" I left his apartment without waiting for an answer. When I returned home, Amanda was gone. She had taken some clothes, but left her engagement ring on the kitchen counter. The 3-carat diamond sparkled under the lights, mocking all my broken dreams. For the next week, I barely functioned. I called in sick to work, turned off my phone, and alternated between sleeping for exhaustingly long periods and staring blankly at the walls of our apartment, now full of painful reminders of Amanda. Every wedding invitation, every framed photo, every item we had purchased together for our future home now felt like a knife twisting in my heart. Eventually, I turned my phone back on to find dozens of missed calls and messages. Some were from concerned friends who had heard rumors. Others were from Amanda and Michael, full of apologies and requests to talk. But most disturbing were the messages from my parents, which were strangely vague, asking me to call them as soon as possible. I later learned that Michael had gone to our parents first, presenting them with a carefully sanitized version of events that minimized his betrayal and painted the situation as a complicated but ultimately positive development since a grandchild was involved. After a week of isolation, I received a text from my mother insisting that I come to Sunday dinner to discuss the situation as a family. Against my better judgment, I agreed, desperate for some support from the only people I thought I could still count on. When I arrived at my parents' house, the familiar place that had always represented safety and love, I was greeted with the shock of seeing not only my parents but also Michael and Amanda sitting in the living room. Amanda was pale but composed, sitting uncomfortably close to Michael on the sofa. My mother rushed to hug me while my father stood awkwardly by the fireplace. "What is this?" I demanded, pulling away from my mother. "Why are they here? Please sit down, Johnny," my father said in the authoritative tone he used when I was a child in trouble. "We need to talk about this situation like adults." I remained standing. "There is nothing to talk about. They betrayed me. End of story." My mother took my arm and guided me to an armchair. "Honey, we understand you are hurt. What Michael and Amanda did was wrong. But people make mistakes, and family has to find a way to forgive." I could not believe what I was hearing. "Forgive? You want me to forgive them for having an affair behind my back and getting pregnant with what should have been my child, Johnny? We are not minimizing your pain," my father said. "But the fact is, Amanda is carrying your niece or nephew. That child is innocent in all this, and it is going to be part of our family." Michael finally spoke up. "Johnny, we want to make this right. Amanda and we are going to take responsibility for what happened. We are keeping the baby." "How noble of you," I spat, unable to contain my bitterness. "Blood is thicker than water, Johnny," my mother said softly. "In time you will see that family has to stick together, especially for the sake of the grandchild." I looked at her in disbelief. The woman who had taught me right from wrong, who had always stood up for me, was now asking me to accept the ultimate betrayal for the sake of family harmony. "You need to be mature about this, Johnny," she continued. "These things happen, and holding on to anger only hurts you in the end." My father cleared his throat. "Son, we all share some responsibility here. If you had not been so focused on your work, spending all those late nights at the office, perhaps Amanda would not have turned to Michael for companionship." That was when I realized I had lost not just my fiancé and brother, but my parents too. They were actually blaming me for the betrayal. Amanda spoke for the first time since I had arrived. "Johnny, I never meant to hurt you. Michael and we found something real. I know you cannot understand now, but we hope someday you will see that this worked out for the best." I looked around the room at these people who had been my whole world, my family, the people I had trusted most. And in that moment I knew I was alone. "You all seem to have everything figured out," I said, standing up. "You have rewritten the story to make yourselves feel better, to justify the unjustifiable. But I will not play along. I am done." "Johnny, do not be dramatic," my mother pleaded. "We can work through this as a family. Michael and Amanda will get married quickly, and in time you will find someone else." "Someone else," I echoed. "So not only do I have to forgive them, but I am supposed to attend their wedding and play the role of the supportive uncle to their child." "That would be the mature thing to do," my father said firmly. I looked at each of their faces one last time. "Then I guess I am not mature. Because as of right now, I no longer have a family." With that, I walked out, ignoring their calls for me to come back. I got in my car and drove away with no destination in mind, except away from the people who had broken my heart. Rock bottom came in the form of a cheap hotel room where I spent the next week. I barely ate, slept at odd hours, and ignored the persistent calls and messages that kept coming from my family. The betrayal felt physical, like a constant ache in my chest that would not subside. The turning point came when my best friend Ryan somehow tracked me down. He showed up at my hotel room door with takeout food and a six-pack of beer. "You look like hell," he said bluntly as I let him in. "Thanks," I replied, the first hint of a smile I had managed in weeks. Ryan did not push me to talk. He just sat with me, made sure I ate something, and offered his guest room for as long as I needed it. Having someone simply be there without judgment or expectations was exactly what I needed. The next day, Ryan convinced me to make an appointment with a therapist. Dr. Keller was a straightforward woman in her 50s who did not offer empty platitudes or push me to forgive. Instead, she helped me process the trauma and begin to make decisions about what came next. "You cannot control what they did," she told me during our second session, "but you can control what you do now. What do you want your life to look like moving forward?" That simple question became my North Star. I realized I needed to make clean, decisive breaks to have any chance at rebuilding my life. First, I sold my small share in the family business, a rental property company my father had started years ago. The money gave me a financial cushion and severed one more tie to my former life. I met with a lawyer to ensure my finances were protected, especially from any attempts by Michael or my parents to claim I had obligations to Amanda or the baby. The lawyer assured me I was legally in the clear but suggested documenting everything just in case. At work, I had to address the rumors that had inevitably spread. I had a frank conversation with my boss, sharing only the necessary details. To my surprise, he was incredibly supportive, offering me additional time off and assuring me my position was secure, but I knew I could not stay in Seattle. There were too many memories, too many chances of painful encounters. During my leave of absence, I started looking for job opportunities elsewhere and found an opening at a promising tech startup in Denver. Their offer was competitive, and the chance to work on innovative projects appealed to the part of me that needed new challenges to focus on. Selling my Seattle home was painful, but necessary. Amanda and I had chosen it together, planning to fill it with children and memories. Instead, I sold it to a young couple, expecting their first child, finding some poetic justice in that. Before leaving Seattle, I sent one final email to my family. I outlined my decision to cut ties completely, explaining that their choice to side with Michael and Amanda over me had broken something fundamental in our relationship that could not be repaired. I asked them not to contact me again and blocked their numbers and email addresses immediately after sending it. Amanda made several desperate attempts to reach me through mutual friends. Each time I refused to engage. Michael sent a pathetic apology letter to my workplace, which I returned unopened with address unknown written across it. My parents seemed to finally understand the gravity of the situation when they learned I had sold my house and accepted a job across the country. My mother left tearful voicemails begging me to reconsider, while my father sent a stern email telling me I was overreacting. Too little, too late. On my last night in Seattle, Ryan and a few loyal friends who had stood by me threw a small going-away gathering. It was the first time I had genuinely laughed in months. These people who owed me nothing but had shown me true loyalty reminded me that family is not just about blood. The next morning, I loaded the last of my belongings into my car and began the drive to Denver. As the Seattle skyline faded in my rearview mirror, I made a conscious decision not to look back, literally and figuratively. That chapter of my life was over. The first few weeks in Denver were disorienting but oddly freeing. My apartment was sparse and impersonal, but it was mine alone, untainted by memories. I threw myself into my new job, impressing my colleagues with my dedication and technical skills. The work was challenging and absorbing, giving my mind less time to dwell on the past. Gradually, I established new routines. I joined a local gym, found a coffee shop I liked for weekend mornings, and explored my new city. I continued therapy sessions via video calls with Dr. Eples, Keller working through my trust issues and anger. 6 months after moving, I realized I had gone several weeks without checking the social media accounts of anyone from my old life. This small victory felt significant, a sign that their hold on me was weakening. Then came news from Seattle through a mutual friend who thought I should know that Amanda and Michael had gotten married in a small ceremony. I was surprised by my reaction, or rather lack of reaction. I felt nothing beyond a vague sense of closure. About 8 months after moving to Denver, I went on my first date with a woman named Katie, a graphic designer I met at a company event. The evening was somewhat awkward, both of us a bit nervous, but there was something refreshing about being with someone who knew nothing of my past trauma. We agreed to a second date, and then a third. I built new traditions independent of my family history. Thanksgiving was spent volunteering at a local shelter rather than around my parents' dining table. Christmas was celebrated with new friends who had also stayed in the city for the holidays. On the 1-year anniversary of leaving Seattle, I spent some time reflecting on how far I had come. The pain had not disappeared entirely, but it had dulled from a sharp, constant ache to an occasional twinge. I had proven to myself that I could start over, that I was more resilient than I had ever imagined. The final test came when my parents sent a birth announcement for Michael and Amanda's baby, a boy they had named after my grandfather. It was a transparent attempt to pull me back into the family fold. Instead of responding, I blocked the new email address they had used and deleted the message. My relationship with Katie progressed slowly but steadily. She was patient with my hesitancy to fully open up, and when I finally told her the full story of what had brought me to Denver, her compassion without pity strengthened our connection. The most important lesson I learned through all of this was about forgiveness, but not in the way my family had demanded. I learned to forgive myself for not seeing the warning signs, for trusting blindly, for believing that blood guarantees loyalty. This self-forgiveness was healing in a way that pardoning the actual wrongdoers never could have been. 2 years after the betrayal that shattered my world, I found myself genuinely happy in my new life. My career was thriving. I had authentic friendships and a relationship built on honesty and mutual respect. I had discovered that cutting ties with toxic people, even family, was not a failure but an act of self-preservation that allowed me to build something better. The ultimate victory was not in forgetting what happened, but in ensuring it no longer defined me. I was not Johnny, the guy whose fiancée cheated with his brother. I was just Johnny, a man who had faced adversity and emerged stronger on the other side. Have you ever had to cut ties with family members for your own well-being? Leave a comment below about how you handled similar situations in your life. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe to hear more stories of overcoming betrayal. Share this video with someone who might need to hear that sometimes walking away is the strongest thing you can do. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember, blood does not always have to be thicker than water.